On Overdrive today, we drive the Audi Q8 e-tron extensively and get behind the wheel of the updated Kia Seltos. Hello and welcome to Overdrive. I am Sonita. The Audi e-tron is now dubbed as the Q8 e-tron, comes with a larger, denser battery pack which leads to enhanced driving range. It also gets a few cosmetic upgrades in terms of its design as well as its features. Let's just find out how much of this difference really translates into a value proposition for this new EV.
Audi has a new e-tron in town. It's now called the Q8 e-tron, and here is what this car has to offer. Now the front end, what you can clearly see are some borrowed bits from the e-tron GT. Remember that sports car? So you see this entire blacked out frame? Well, that was never there before in the e-tron SUV, but it was certainly there in the e-tron sports car. Makes it definitely look a lot sportier. The grille has changed. It's got this plastic grille now, and it's got this glossy effect, a light grey glossy effect. But most important is the badge that has changed right here in the center of the car. Now this is a two-dimensional badge. It's not a 3D badge. It's not with those chrome elements on it. It now actually looks a little bit like a sticker has been applied onto a plastic body. But, well, Audi thinks this works. Well, I'm not too sure about it. There is an LED light beam that runs across the hood and illuminates this badge. In the Sportback, the badge itself gets illuminated, and there are some other light graphic elements on the headlamps to enhance the look and feel of the car, especially at night once the sun goes down. The Q8 e-tron that I'm driving today is essentially the e-tron, but back then Audi's electric SUV portfolio wasn't very large, and that's why the name e-tron stuck. But now, as that portfolio has grown globally and diversified, it was essential to bring in further nomenclature to distinguish one product from the other. And so the e-tron has now become the Q8 e-tron. But I've got some very fond memories of this SUV. I've driven it quite extensively. We took this SUV all the way up to Ladakh. It was a very challenging drive, but the e-tron was absolutely brilliant on that drive. With the Q8 e-tron, there's certainly a lot of areas that have been improved upon. So previously, you'd get about 450 kilometers or 470 kilometers of WLTP range. In actual everyday life, that would translate to about 350 to 370 kilometers of usable range. But now with the Q8 e-tron, what Audi has done is that they couldn't put in a larger battery pack, but what they could do is make the battery more efficient. And to do this, they've packed the cell stacks inside that battery pack even more densely. So effectively, you get much higher range. WLTP cycles for the Q8 e-tron are now about 560 or 570 kilometers for the Q8 e-tron SUV, and it goes up to nearly 600 kilometers for the Q8 e-tron Sportback. Why the higher range? There's one very simple reason for that. The aerodynamic efficiency in the Q8 e-tron SUV is higher than the aerodynamic efficiency of the Q8 e-tron Sportback. What I mean by that is that the Q8 e-tron Sportback is slipperier through air, essentially improving efficiency of that battery pack. Acceleration is brisk, it builds up momentum rapidly, but it also does this very gracefully. So it's not those mad instantaneous bursts of torque and speed that build up, but feels very much in control, very manageable, very easy to drive. Now if you hear that buzzer going off in the background, well, that's because I'm kind of winging it on this expansive highway. Though that's essentially not how you drive an electric vehicle. Because out on the highways, efficiency drops down considerably, and unless you've got plenty of opportunities to brake and get the regenerative system working, you're going to discharge the batteries very rapidly. With those denser batteries, from roughly around a 80 kilowatt hour battery in the e-tron, the Q8 e-tron now has a 114 kilowatt hour battery pack. So obviously, range has increased substantially. Charging times have also improved. The e-tron can be charged on a 22 kilowatt AC charger, and on DC, that can go up to about 180 kilowatts. With the 180 kilowatt DC charger, the Q8 e-tron can go from 0 to 80% charge in a little under 30 minutes. 100% will take you about 45 to 50 minutes. With a 22 kilowatt charger, the AC charger, this is about a 4.5 hour to around 5 hour charging time to get the most juice into that battery. Audi also provides every owner with 2 chargers, so you can place one at your home or at your place of work, or one at home and one at work, or just keep one at home, and in case you're traveling somewhere outside, a long distance road trip, then the second charger will come in handy for those long trips where you don't have a charging system handy along the way.
Is this new Q8 e-tron more fun to drive than its predecessor? Let's find out after this very short break. Welcome back. You're watching Overdrive. Of course, driving range is still a big criteria in case you're even considering adopting an EV lifestyle. But Audi has already addressed this by giving the Q8 e-tron a larger battery pack, and they have also enhanced the driving dynamics. It's now a very fun to drive proposition. Bert will tell you more.
Like most electrics, you get instantaneous torque. That makes this a very quick SUV. But then again, this is not something that you'd want for its performance. It's electric, it uses a lot of sustainable materials, and as an end product, it leaves a smaller carbon footprint behind. And that, in a sense, is what the Q8 e-tron's ambitions are. On the suspension side of things, there's been an effort, like I mentioned, to improve its dynamic abilities and, of course, its ride comfort as well. And so the Q8 e-tron on the road, on tarmac, it's a lot of fun. So you'd never ever really have to brake into a corner too hard. You're really pushing your luck too fast into a corner. Absolutely, you have to brake hard, cut down your speed and make that corner. But otherwise, if you aren't all that fast, well, the Q8 e-tron, it's very easy to straight line that apex and move on. Now, the Q8 e-tron continues to offer those multiple modes of recharging the batteries. So it's not just having to plug in to an AC or a DC charging system. When you're driving, you've got multiple regenerative modes or discharge systems that control the flow of energy, or rather reduce the flow of energy to a minimum. Saving charge in your battery is to put it into range mode. You simply go through the infotainment menus to get to the range mode window, click on the button, and this effectively negates, or rather switches off, certain ancillary functions that draw power from the main batteries until you're able to get to a charging station and recharge the batteries. On the safety front, the Q8 e-tron gets you a whole array of safety systems, both active and passive, multiple airbags, ESP, ESC, and along with that, there are a few advanced driver assistance systems as well. Now, the Q8 e-tron offers you multiple driving modes. You've got the off-road mode, you've got the all-road mode, you've got the efficiency mode, you've got a comfort mode, you've got a dynamic mode, you've got an individual settings mode as well. So it does not matter where you're driving the Q8 e-tron, you will always be easily able to access almost any terrain. Now, as you can see, there's plenty of room in this rear bench, adequate knee room, plenty of room under the seats, in fact, to place your feet, and, well, generous amounts of headroom as well. And you've got that panoramic sunroof, so that sense of space in the rear cabin of this Q8 e-tron SUV is immense. And of course, you've got an armrest with cup holders. So adequately appointed, comfortable, spacious and practical. But what is the sport back like? And as you can see, there's, well, less room, less head space for occupants. Nonetheless, it's a pretty well appointed rear space. You get all the features that you'd want, and don't forget, the Q8 e-tron Sportback, better efficiency, higher range in this SUV. So I've had a fantastic day driving both the Q8 e-tron SUV and of course the Q8 e-tron Sportback, though a little bit of driving with the Sportback. Nonetheless, both of them are very similar in character, just that the range differs in between the Sportback and of course the SUV. But overall, they're brilliant packages. They've certainly enhanced the customer experience, both through its ownership experience and of course the driving experience as well. I'm looking forward to a day when I can actually take the e-tron SUV, the Q8 e-tron SUV, on a longer trip somewhere, enjoy driving this a little bit more.
The Audi Q8 e-tron and the Q8 e-tron Sportback variant will launch on the 18th of August, and we will bring you all the price and various other details from the launch floor. So do check out the Overdrive social media platforms for all the details. We'll be back shortly to tell you more about the updated Kia Seltos. Stay with us, you're watching Overdrive. Welcome back, you're watching Overdrive. There's a new updated Kia Seltos in the market. It comes with a few tweaks to its exterior design, a few changes to the interior as well. But what's very exciting is it now gets a new 1.5-litre engine, and it also gets level 2 ADAS functions. Bert has more details.
There's a new badass in town. This is Kia's new Seltos. And well, it comes with a whole host of features, including a completely new engine, the 1.5 turbocharged petrol, which gives you about 160 PS of peak power. Then there's a suite of safety features as well on board, thanks to ADAS Level 2. And then there's those cosmetic changes and feature additions that make it a completely different car from what it was before. And we're rolling off in the Kia Seltos. This is version 2.0, the updated Seltos. Let me take you through those mechanical bits which we weren't allowed to do before. And that's the 1.5 turbo petrol engine. Now this is offered in the GTX and other variants as well. But what's important is that in this version that I'm driving, it's mated to the 7-speed dual clutch transmission, the automatic transmission. So yes, shift quality is quick. But what about the engine? So let's talk about that 1.5-litre turbo petrol engine. 160 PS of peak power, comes in at about 5,500 RPM, which is fairly high up the rev range. Even the 243 Newton meters of torque comes in pretty high. So effectively, if you need to overtake, so even if the kickdowns are pretty quick, thanks to this 7-speed DCT transmission, the engine doesn't feel quick enough. The Kia Seltos offers level 2 of ADAS, and this brings several new features in terms of safety to this entire package. So you get lane keep assist, you get smart cruise control, which is essentially adaptive cruise control, you get pedestrian collision avoidance, and several others. Here is how lane keep assist works. We've set the button on, so the vehicle, the Seltos, stays in exactly the same lane and does not meander from it. If I had to change lanes without using the indicator, you hear that warning buzz? Well, those are auditory warnings that come from the Seltos to warn you that you're changing the lanes in the wrong manner. If I had to put the indicator on, perfectly fine. In addition, you've also got blind spot monitoring. So objects in your rear view mirrors that aren't visible, that fall in your blind spot, well, the Kia Seltos will detect those. And in case you're changing lanes, turning from the left to the right lane, well, the Seltos will give you a warning if there is a vehicle oncoming and is in your blind spot. Smart cruise control will essentially allow the Seltos to propel itself forward to retard speed on its own. It does not require driver intervention. Once a speed is set, the Seltos will maintain that speed. If an object comes ahead of you, like a slow-moving truck or a bus or another car, the Seltos will slow down to maintain a safe distance from the vehicle ahead. Once you're able to overtake that vehicle, it will on its own accelerate and pick up pace, moving to the speed that you've set it at. Cruising down the highway at about 80 to 120 kilometers an hour, like we are just now, the Seltos is at its most comfortable. Don't push it too hard, sedately take it through its paces, and this is a car you can enjoy. We've just driven the Seltos through Nagpur city, which has a mix of both concrete and bitumen, tarmac roads. And the ride quality on that was surprisingly a little bumpy and a little firm. Though Kia claims that efforts have been taken to soften the suspension to make the ride quality more compliant, more comfortable. The design aspect now though, in my opinion, has been dulled a bit. This current generation Seltos takes a little time getting used to. The front end design looks a little chaotic. The grille has changed and it stands out in your face and not in a very pleasant manner. The rest of the silhouette on the Seltos stays the same because this is essentially still the previous generation vehicle. Though with that grille, of course, a lot has changed at the front end. The interiors are fairly familiar. We've seen a lot of these elements on previous generation Seltos and some of them have been carried forward as well. But there are a few additions as well. You've got a new LED panel right behind the steering wheel, which is a single panel that houses both the infotainment screens and the instrument cluster. Sharp, clear, readable displays. You get climate control for the front and the rear passengers. You've got the panoramic sunroof and a lot of other comfort and convenience features that offer this SUV pretty good value for money. There is one thing about this interior that I quite like, and that are the seats, especially the driver and the passenger. And there are two reasons for this. First, these are ventilated seats. The second, if you look at the backrest, it's got this ribbed pattern both on the backrest and the seat squab. And this gives it that very orthopedic feeling of comfort and stability. I believe it makes every drive quite comfortable. But then again, the Kia Seltos has got something that will prevent you from falling asleep. It's got attention assist, which has got sensors and cameras in that instrument console right behind the steering wheel that will detect your face, and if you are falling asleep, it will tell you to go and grab a coffee. I've currently stopped to evaluate another of the ADAS safety suite features, and this one is going to show me certain blind spot warnings and of course parking assistance as well. There are a couple of features that we're going to assess right now. One of them is the door opening warning. If there is oncoming traffic in a parking lot and you try to open your door, ADAS will warn you there is another vehicle coming towards you and that it will be unsafe to open the door at that point in time. If you were driving out of your parking lot and there was another vehicle coming in the same direction as you, ADAS will again stop the car, warn you that there is another vehicle coming. It could be in your blind spot, and ADAS will essentially identify that vehicle and tell you to stop or rather to take precautions or to be careful when you're moving out of your parking slot. We're now going to see one more feature from the ADAS suite of safety features, and that is pedestrian collision avoidance systems. Effectively, the Seltos will recognize that someone has walked across the street and will apply the brakes if you are not quick enough to respond to that emergency circumstance. The Seltos will brake by itself and stop the vehicle. Now, this works in multiple conditions at speeds above 5 kilometers per hour up to about 65 kilometers per hour for pedestrians. If it detects a motorcyclist or another car, it could go up from 180 kilometers an hour. Even then, it could apply the brakes in an emergency situation and bring the car to a halt. I have now moved over to the 1.5 litre Seltos with the IMT transmission. This is a 6-speed IMT transmission, and IMT is called Intelligent Manual Transmission, which essentially means there is no clutch pedal and you can change gears in this manual transmission without having to use a clutch. It's not very difficult to do, but there are some pros and cons to this. What are the pros? Well, of course, if you are driving in urban conditions, this kind of transmission is just as effective as an automatic transmission, simply because your left leg can stay idle, not exert itself, having to push a clutch pedal in all the time. But at the same time, you get higher fuel efficiency. The disadvantages or the cons of this are that this isn't the most responsive transmission. And sometimes you can forget to do that. You definitely need to downshift. It's easy to forget that you're in a higher gear and that the car is not an automatic. So all you have to keep in mind is that you have to consistently shift, which means your left hand still does a lot of the work. And the new Kia Seltos, well, has been very attractively priced. Prices begin at about 10.89 lakhs for the absolutely base variant, which is a 6-manual transmission or the HTE variant, and this goes all the way up to about 19.99 lakhs for both the diesel and the petrol variants, which is not bad value at all, considering that at 20 lakhs ex-showroom price, you're getting a fair amount of features, you're getting a fairly good engine, you're getting decent ride comfort, a good-looking car still, and well, a lot of value that Kia is associated with now in the country. So overall, a good package, certainly one to look forward to coming out in the market very soon.
That's it then from us on this week's edition of Overdrive. But remember, you can stay in touch with the team through Facebook, Twitter as well as YouTube. And you can follow our latest updates on Instagram. Until next week then, drive and ride safe.